There we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm so happy that you could be here. My name is Naomi and I'm an English teacher. If you didn't join my lesson yesterday, then this is part of an ongoing series. We're looking at how to get you the best mark possible in your writing exam. So, as many of you may know, in your IELTS exam, it's split up into 4 parts. So you'll start with listening, then you have reading, then you go on to writing, and then you finish with your speaking. So specifically today, we're going to continue looking at writing. And yesterday, we looked at the first task in the general IELTS. So there are 2 types of IELTS exams, which I'll talk about a bit. Many of you may know this already, but it's really good to understand why we're taking the exam, how each exam works. So we're looking at the general IELTS exam today, and we're looking at the second writing task. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen with you. And we're going to get straight into the task. So, I hope everyone's doing really well today. So, we're just going to do this. So all these technological things. It's so great to have you all here with me today. Share screen, entire screen, there we go. So the main point about these lessons is that I really want to increase your confidence, yeah? We really want to get you so ready for the exam so that when you go into the exam, you feel super prepared and it's actually really easy. At school, I was such a nerd and I was always really prepared. So the exams were actually never scary for me. I really enjoyed them. So that's what we're trying to do for you guys. Yeah? Let's get into it then. My first question is, what is IELTS? The definition: the International English Language Testing System, which is what IELTS stands for, measures the language proficiency of people who want to study or work where English is used as a language of communication. Many of you may know this, but it's good to really get into nitty-gritty. You can look at lots of materials and definitions on the IELTS website. Most important thing, there are 2 types of test. What are those 2 types? That's right, we have academic and general. So, IELTS academic is for people applying for higher education or professional registration in an English-speaking environment. That means people going to university in countries like the UK, Canada, New Zealand. Check your university specifically because it may be different and you really want to make sure that you're doing the right test. Okay? In the test itself, it tests you on academic language and assesses whether you are ready to begin studying or training. It's a very academic test. It uses quite advanced vocabulary and grammar and is a bit different to the IELTS General. In the IELTS General, it's for people who are going to English-speaking countries for secondary education, work experience, or training programs. Okay, so normally not university, but secondary education. It's also a requirement for migration to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK. Yeah? The test focuses on basic survival skills in day-to-day life. It's actually a bit more advanced than that because you still have to write an essay, you still have to have very advanced grammatical structures, but it's not as advanced or academic as the IELTS academic. Most people take the IELTS general, but depending on your situation, you might need the academic. Okay, so today we are looking at IELTS general. So if you're here with me in this lesson, you've probably decided you need to take the IELTS general test. Maybe you're going for secondary education, or you want to go to one of these lovely countries, to England, the UK, New Zealand, maybe Australia or Canada. Wow, I bet you're loving these pictures. These make me want to go on holiday. It looks so nice, doesn't it? So you've decided you need to take the general IELTS test. How should you prepare? How should you prepare? Just take a few seconds to think about that. We're going to have a look at that in more detail in a minute, but first, a really good way of preparing is knowing the test structure inside out. Yeah, you really need to understand exactly what you're going to be given in the test, because you don't want any nasty surprises. Yeah, and if you have a good teacher, if you're with a teacher, then they should be guiding you through and using lots of past papers so that you're very familiar with the test before you go into that room or sit at the computer and take it. Okay, so what do we start with in the IELTS general test? We start with listening. There's 30 minutes for this section, and you have 4 recordings taken from different contexts. You also have speakers with lots of different accents, so it's good to be able to understand these different accents. Yeah, from maybe Australia, New Zealand, the UK, these are very different accents. So if you can only understand people from the USA, then you need to think carefully about watching TV programs, series, or speaking to people in who are from those countries. Yeah, then we move on to the reading. 60 minutes for the reading, and there are 3 sections: social survival, workplace survival, and general reading. These are 3 very different areas, yeah? So you want to be reading lots of different kinds of material so that you're really prepared. Okay. You have 40 questions in total, which sounds like a lot, but you've got 60 minutes. Yeah, so plenty of time, practice it a lot. Then there's a writing, which we're going to focus on today. 2 tasks. Task 1 is a formal or informal letter. We looked at that yesterday. You can check out the lesson on the MPUB IELTS Facebook page. And task 2 is an essay. We'll be looking at that today. Then we finish with speaking, 11 to 14 minutes. There are 3 parts to the speaking. You start with an introduction and a little interview. It's quite casual. They ask about your family, where you're from. Then you have a long turn. You do a kind of monologue, and then there's a discussion. So the examiner will ask you questions about your topic. Good, so what we're looking at today, the writing task 2. Writing task 2. So get out your pad of paper, ready to take notes and have a go at this yourself. Yeah? And after this lesson, I want you to really be able to write an amazing lesson. I'm going to give you some of my best tips, what I would do if I had to sit the IELTS. Probably wouldn't be easy for me either. And hopefully with that, that's going to really help you in your preparation. First of all, what is task 2? It is an essay of at least 250 words. You don't want to be writing less than 250 words. You really don't want to be writing less than 250 words. Why? Because if you write less, you will get marked down. It would be such a shame to work so hard and then you don't write enough. Yeah, you really want to be writing between 250 and maybe maximum 350 words. You also don't want to write a super long essay that's 500 words, 1,000 words, where you're just writing everything in English that you know, because that is not clear or organised for the examiner. And quite honestly, the examiner has a lot of exams to mark. He is not going to read your whole essay. He is going to think, wow, this person has not spent the time to organise their essay, they've not spent the time to organise their ideas and write an appropriate length essay. So it's not a good idea to write lots and lots. I would say between 250, maximum 350 is a great length. Good to remember, it's twice as many marks as task 1. So if you want to think of it like this, of your writing, task 1 is 33% of your marks, task 2 is 66%. This is why I am recommending to you, and the IELTS exam recommends as well, that you spend 20 minutes on your letter on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2. So you're spending 1/3 on task 1 and 2/3 on task 2. Yeah? You don't want to spend ages writing this perfect letter, look at your watch, I've only got 10 minutes left. No, we want to make sure we're really planning our time. And that is actually one of my biggest tips, and we'll be looking at that further later in the lesson. So what do you have to actually do in task 2? You must discuss a point of view, or give a solution, or justify an opinion, or evaluate ideas. So it's like an essay you've probably written in your own language, in your own first language, where you're given a situation or a controversial question and you're presenting your opinion in an analytical way. You're not just saying, I think that children shouldn't use phones because it is bad. You know, you really need to back up your opinion. We'll look at that in more detail, but you're being analytical. You want to also show the examiner that you're thinking about the other point of view. You're not just presenting your own as the best, like you're selling it on a market. No, you want to show that you've thought about each argument. You could say, I understand that other people have differing views, but I have analysed the situation, and because of this piece of evidence or example, I believe my opinion to be truer to the situation. Yeah, you're just analysing, use all the different points of view. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly check that everybody's with me. Great, thanks so much for joining me. So let's get back to the big screen. Let's go to, what will I be marked on? What will I be marked on? First thing is task response. What does that mean? Task response. It means answer the question. That is 25% of your marks. Easy. You just need to answer the question. Yeah? So many people will not really read the question, see one word and think, oh yeah, I want to write about that, and then write something that is not relevant. This is not really what we want. Yeah, you want to be very specific and actually answer the question that you're being given. Happy? Next one, coherence and cohesion. Wow, those are long words. What do they actually mean? Coherence and cohesion. It means, do they understand me? Be clear and organised when you're writing. Yeah, this will already take you to half of your marks. Answer the question, be clear and organised. What else will I be marked on? What can you think of? What else do you think you're marked on? I think you might be able to guess the last two. Vocabulary. Vocabulary is just words, the words that I know. Make sure you use a wide range of appropriate vocabulary. Okay, not just basic, I think that this is bad. No, you want to show that you have a wide range of vocabulary. In my opinion, the situation is somewhat complicated. Oh, lovely. You're showing you have understanding of how to write proper analytical English with the phrase, in my opinion. And then you're using more complex vocabulary. Complicated is used a lot, but it's better than just bad. You know, you want to show a wide range. Okay? Then grammar. This scares everybody, but it's not scary. As long as you have prepared well, you can go into that exam super confident and you will be able to get an amazing mark on this. Grammar, make sure you're prepared and you have revised things like word order, tenses, when to use articles, things like that. It's really important to have a teacher or somebody that can correct your work and that they can say, John, you always make these mistakes. Make sure you revise maybe the past perfect. Make sure you revise this test. This is where it's quite helpful to have a teacher that can correct your work. Okay, so what are the 4 things I will be marked on? Number 1, task response. Answer the question. Number 2, coherence. Do they understand me? Be clear and organised. Number 3, vocabulary. I'm making sure I'm using a wide range of appropriate words. And number 4, grammar. At the end of the day, it's an English test, isn't it? I want to be accurate and use correct grammar. Great. Now we're moving on to what not to do. Yeah, what not to do. These are some easy things where you can just say, right, can't do this, can't do that. And maybe some of you are doing these things now, so you think, good, don't need to do that anymore. Are there any things that you can think of that are bad exam technique? Any things? What can you think of? Don't use bullet points. It's an essay. It's a formal essay. So they don't want to see notes or bullet points. They want to see a developed written essay. Yeah, simple thing. Next, don't copy. It can be very tempting to copy from somebody or even to memorize an essay before the exam and copy it out in the exam. This is really, really bad practice. I'm sure you're not doing this anyway, but there are always some people that end up doing this. Long term, you're not going to improve your English. When you arrive at the English-speaking country, you won't have the correct level of English because you will have been copying, and there are severe penalties if you are found copying. Yeah, so it's really not a good habit to get into. But I'm sure you're not doing that anyway, so let's move on to the next one. Don't go off topic. What does that mean, go off topic? It just means don't write about something unrelated. Answer the question. I'm going to say this so many times in this lesson, but it's one of the most important things. Answer the question. Stick on that topic. Yeah. Next one. Don't write everything in one paragraph. Just like we saw before, one of the main things they will mark you on is if you are organised. What does organised mean when I'm writing? It means I can divide my ideas into different sections. If I write it all in one paragraph, we're getting a bit lost here. If I write my essay all in one paragraph, I've shown I'm not really organising anything. This is just my thoughts on the page. Not the best technique. So, on a more positive note, now we're going to look at what you should do, what to do. Let's have a look. You should plan your time well. How much time do you have in total? 40 minutes. So I'm not going to start writing the essay straight away, and I'm also not going to spend 30 minutes reading the question and then 10 minutes quickly planning and writing. We're going to speak about this in more detail, but it's just good to remember. Plan your time. Stay on topic. Answer the question, like I keep saying. Great technique. Organise your ideas clearly. Yeah, you're just showing you know how to organise ideas in English. Support your ideas with examples. Support your ideas with examples. We mentioned this before. Just make sure you are not saying what you think without giving any evidence. You need to really show that you have thought your argument through, you've analysed the other point of view, and that you have examples to support your idea. Just the same as in your native language, if you're writing an essay or even in a conversation with someone, you have an opinion, somebody might say, why do you think that? You need to have an example or evidence to back that up. You can actually use examples from your everyday life. You can make it very personal. You're allowed to use examples from your own life. That's not a problem. Yeah? Write full sentences. Just like we said, don't use bullet points. Make sure you're writing full sentences. Use correct spelling and grammatical structures. This sounds obvious, but make sure when you're preparing, you're checking those difficult English spellings, and leave time at the end of your essay to check everything through. You can make little corrections, if any grammatical things you want to change, you can do that at the end as well. Wow, I just guessed what I was going to say. Check your essay at the end. You can tell that I was being, genuine there. These are all things that I do in my own essays. When I was at university and writing a lot of essays, all of these things are tips that I would use. And they're probably things that you do in your own language if you write essays or are used to writing longer things. These are good tips for any language, and it's just the same in English. You need to be following these guidelines. Okay, use your time well. I'm just going to check that we're all okay. Great. Everything's looking good, so let's get back to the presentation. Use your time well. You've got 40 minutes in total. So what do you think we should be doing in those 40 minutes? What do you think we should be doing in those 40 minutes? What are we going to start by doing? Quite obvious. Yeah, we're going to read the question or the instructions. First things first, read the instructions. Make sure you really understand what you are being asked to do. If there are any words you don't understand, that's okay, but try to understand the bigger picture, the task that you're being asked to do, and try to decide already what your argument will be. It might be, there's lots and lots of different topics that these can be on, but you should already have an idea. They're usually quite controversial, so when you read it, you might have a strong instinct to think, no, I really don't agree with that, or think, yes, I'm passionate about this. This is really what I want to write about. So you should already know what kind of argument you want to write about. Yeah. You can use a pen, you can even use coloured pencils. Let's see if I have any here. Yeah. You can bring in your highlighters, bring in your colours if you are the kind of person that likes having colour coordinated work. If that helps you, you can underline the question. You won't get penalised for that at all. If it helps you, do it. About 3 minutes. What do you think I should do next? Am I going to write my essay straight away? No. Plan. Plan your structure and argument. Now, 10 minutes might seem like a lot of time, but if you've written a really good plan, your essay should be so easy to write, because most of your plan will tell you what you're going to write in the essay anyway. Again, when I was at university, my plan would take up probably 60% of my time, and then the essay writing, if I had written a good plan, would be so easy compared to the plan. So 10 minutes is my guideline. Maybe a bit less if you want. I know that students often get very nervous in their exams, so they don't want to spend a lot of time planning. If that's you, that's okay, but don't spend less than 6 or 7 minutes on your plan. So what kind of structure should I have in my essay? What kind of structure should I have? What do I normally start with in anything that I'm writing? Introduction. Yes. So in your introduction, you're going to basically tell the reader what you're going to write. Tell the reader what you're going to write. You want to make it so easy for the examiner to understand your essay. So in the introduction, you're just outlining your main opinion on what you're going to write. Maybe draw in some of the counter arguments, but it's basically just outlining what you will write about. What comes after the introduction? How many paragraphs do you think we should have? We've already said we don't want one big paragraph, do we? That's why we need the different sections. Do you think 6 or 7 or a bit less? 6 or 7 is too much. You're going to have really short paragraphs, and it's not going to help the flow of your essay. It might also make your essay a bit too long. So I would normally say 2 or 3 paragraphs. Yeah, this is just a guide. I would normally start with my main argument, using examples, of course, and analysis. I'd start with my main argument. Then in paragraph 2, I would move on to the counter argument. So, what do I mean by counter argument? What do you think I mean by counter argument? Counter argument is you're basically showing that you have considered the other point of view. You're showing that you have considered the other point of view. So maybe you are arguing that nuclear power stations should be banned in every country. In paragraph 1, you've used some great examples, maybe of the dangers to people and planet of nuclear power. In the second paragraph, you can start saying, despite these strong arguments against nuclear power, it is worth appreciating the other side of the argument. Yeah, you just want to show that you've analysed each side of the argument. You're going to end paragraphs 2 still convincing the reader of your point of view, of your argument, but it's a good moment to show that you're not just only talking about your side. Yeah, you're really appreciating it, that it is a complicated issue, because like everything in this life, things are complicated and there is not always one answer for everything. So it's good to show that you can analyse that and appreciate that. After paragraph 2, what do we have? We have the conclusion. Yeah, so what should I be doing in my conclusion? What should I be doing in my conclusion? I'm just going to make this smaller and I'm just going to share. Hi everyone that's just joining now. It's really great to have you with us. Just going to share this. And let's just working out how to do it. There we go. So you've got your conclusion. What do you think we should be writing in our conclusion? It's quite an important part of the essay, isn't it? Because this is the last thing your examiner will read. It's the last thing they'll read. So you want to make it really good, don't you? In your conclusion, I'll just write it here. Good, thanks for agreeing with me there. Conclusion's so important, isn't it? So what am I going to write in my conclusion? Am I going to introduce new ideas? No, not really. I'm going to summarise the whole essay and emphasise my argument. Again, if you write essays in your native language, it's a similar technique. Yeah, it's almost the same in every language. Conclusion needs to be strong. You might introduce one tiny other bit of material, but you're not really introducing lots of material. This wants to be a summary saying, on the basis of this amazing essay I've just written, my argument is still that nuclear power is wrong. Yeah, you're really emphasizing your point of view there. So now, according to my little example timetable, you should have 27 minutes left, approximately, to write your essay, which is plenty of time to write your essay. 250 words is not that much. It's, well, it's 2 paragraphs, an introduction and a conclusion. Yeah, so it's really not too long, and 27 minutes or 25 minutes roughly is plenty of time to be writing that. If anyone has any specific questions, they can write that in the comments, and I will try and answer that as well. So Walior is saying he has problems with readings, especially answering questions. Is there an easy way to get good marks? That's a good question. We're just looking at writing specifically now, but maybe I'll do a reading series and we will have a look at that. All right, thanks for that question. Then we have Wayod is saying he has trouble with spellings. He has trouble with spellings. So with spellings, it's just good to be practicing it every day. Yeah, every day. First thing when you wake up, instead of looking at Facebook, unless you're looking at this page, at the IELTS page, then of course it's very useful. But first thing in the morning, look at 5 new words. When you're learning new words, what do you need to do? What's a really important thing to do? You need to find out what kind of word it is. Is it a noun? Is it an adjective? Is it a verb? You need to make sure you remember the correct pronunciation. We've got a great series on pronunciation on this page as well. And of course, remember the spelling. This is just all about practice. English spellings can be a bit illogical, so it's good to keep practicing that. And if you have a good teacher, then they will be able to correct you and give you some rules and patterns in English spelling. I hope that's helpful. Let's continue. So then you've got 25 minutes left to write your main ideas. Yes, you can absolutely join, even if you've been watching the other series, that's absolutely fine. We're just looking at the general IELTS exam, how to write a great essay. So somebody's asking, this is actually a really great question. Is about 250 to 350 words good for a better score, or below 320 words? So I think, as far as I'm aware, there's not a big penalty for writing too many words, but I think you're absolutely right, Monish. I would keep to below 320. I think that's probably a good rule to set yourself, because you, just like I mentioned before, you want to make it as easy as possible for the examiner. The examiner has got lots of exams to read, and also the nature of this essay is that you should not need more than 300 words, 320 to write a good essay. So great question, Monish. 320 words is probably a great limit, so I would stick to that. Is it good to mention the counter argument? Yes, definitely mention the counter argument. Definitely mention the counter argument. This essay is all about analysis and evaluating a point of view. And when you evaluate and analyse in any language, you need to show that you have considered all the different options and all the points of view. So if you want to get a high mark on this, you definitely should mention the counter argument. Thanks for that question. We have another question here, more specific. How do I write the counter argument? Should it be related to the main argument or not? I just normally write down the counter argument. So let's just go to the previous slide here. This is just an example, but yes, I would relate it to the main argument. So you're actually only going to mention the counter argument in order to persuade your reader that your argument is better. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. So you're only going to mention the counter argument to persuade the reader that your argument is better. So whether you start to mention it in paragraph 2, like I have suggested here, or you mention it a bit earlier, I personally would try to relate it back to your main argument by saying some critics or scientists argue that, blah, 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 counter argument, but on close analysis, I believe this to be untrue. Yeah, basically, you're taking their argument, saying, I've considered this, but on analysis, my argument is better. That's how I would approach that. I hope that's helpful. Any more questions, you can just put them in the comments. Great. This is our little plan. Let's go to the next slide. So, I know planning is important, but how do I do it? Great question. Planning can be quite difficult, and we're going to have a look at some key tips on how to plan in the most efficient and clearest way. So, good things to do when you are planning. So this you can actually do when you read the question. As you read the question, identify the main issues in the essay question. Yeah, so you can do this even before you start to plan. I'm just going to write that. Before you start planning, identify the main issues in the essay question. We're going to look at an example in a minute, so then we can put all of these tips into action. So I've identified the main issues, number 1. Number 2, brainstorm main points. You can literally do that with a brainstorm on your piece of paper. Yeah, let's say this is the example we just used, nuclear power. I might write this in the middle, nuclear power, and then I'm going to write all the different arguments for and against that I can think of. Maybe I don't have a strong opinion on nuclear power, but I've done the brainstorm, I've had a look at it, I think, wow, the arguments against nuclear power are much stronger, so I'm going to argue against. That's where brainstorm is really important, especially if you don't have a strong opinion on a subject. Then choose the best main points. Maybe I have come up with a lot of different ideas on nuclear power in my brainstorm, but some of them are not as convincing. I want to choose the best main points, the most convincing points, the points that I have examples to back them up. So choose points with that you have examples for. Yeah, that's a good way to choose which points you will use. Plan your supporting points. So you might have a main argument, again, just using the example of nuclear power. Your main argument might be that it is very negative for future generations. So you're talking about future generations in all of your paragraphs, but your supporting points, you might say, it's also very negative for people that are living in the world today. So you want to plan your supporting points as well. Another excellent thing to do in the plan, we've talked about this a lot before, is to organise your paragraphs. Yeah, that one's quite simple, and it might be easier to do that after you've chosen your main points. You might do that after you've chosen your main points. Great. So, got a question here. I felt problems with cohesion and giving an example. Give suggestions, please. Okay, this is a very good point. Let's just get a little new slide. So, what does cohesion mean? Cohesion just means, does it make sense? So, for an essay to show cohesion, you must organise your ideas clearly. Show that you need to basically follow your argument through from start to finish. So in the opening, you're saying, I am strongly against nuclear power because it will affect future generations. Then in the conclusion, am I going to say, nuclear power is actually beneficial and good in some ways for future generations? No, I want to have the same argument throughout in the whole essay. This is cohesion, organised and the same argument throughout the whole essay. You might bring in counter arguments, but essentially it's the same argument. Yeah, bringing in examples is just, for example, if you're talking about education and you have children yourself, you could say, as a personal example, my 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, has blah, 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 blah. You can use examples from your personal life, or if I'm talking about nuclear power, I could use examples from the news or things that I know about that. I hope that's helpful. Let's get back to the lesson. Any other questions? I think I'll probably have a look at the end. So this is good things to do in your plan that we've just looked at. Let's make this a bit bigger for you. Ooh. There we go. Now, good connecting words to use. These are just some examples. You should research lots of different examples because it's very important to have a wide range of connecting words. We have firstly, secondly. When would I use firstly and secondly? This is for listing. Maybe I'm making a list of arguments. Good. Furthermore. Furthermore. Moreover. Moreover. These are synonyms. they have a very similar meaning. And when would we use furthermore or moreover? When would we use furthermore or moreover? We'd use them when to bring in additional information. Additional related information. Hi to everyone joining us now. And then we have however. When do I use however? Is it also for additional information? However is a little bit different, isn't it? However is for contrasting information. Should we just give a little example there? Let's give a little example with however. I could say, this is maybe not something you'd use in your essay, but it is so cold outside. However, we could say it's so horrible and cold outside. However, I do like being in a warm house when it's cold outside. Yeah, so I'm saying it's horrible outside, which is negative, but then I'm bringing in a positive. They're two contrasting things. It's horrible, but I do like being in a warm house when it's cold outside. That is true, and this happens a lot in England. Then we have for instance. What do I use for instance for? What do I use for instance for? I can use for instance when bringing in examples. We had a great question from Monish about giving examples. This is a good way to bring in examples. Are there any other ways that I can bring in examples? Well, it's probably the most common one. For example. Good. Just have a question here. However, is however mostly negative? No, it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be negative. It's just two different things. So I have one piece of information and then something completely different. So here, I've actually said a positive thing. I like it, however, I do like it. It's just two different things, contrasting information. I hope that's helpful. So as a result, I use this for cause and effect. Let's do a little example of that. So, again, let's use the weather. It's an easy one. We often talk about this. It is, we could say, it is hailing it down outside. Hail. So it's very, very heavy rain, almost like snow, where little bits of ice come from the sky. It's quite extreme weather. It's hailing it down outside. As a result, I won't go on a walk. I don't want the hail to hit me. This is actually quite formal, so maybe I wouldn't say it in this context, but it's great for an essay. It is great for an essay. Particularly, when do I use particularly? When I'm being specific about something, to specify. Then, in my opinion, to introduce my opinion. Great. Let's go on to the next slide. So, just in the last 5 minutes, we're going to read an example question together. We're going to read an example question together. So this, as we've been saying, is the task 2. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Here it says, write about the following topic. I'm going to read it to you. In Britain, when someone gets old, they often go to live in a home with other old people where there are nurses to look after them. Sometimes the government has to pay for this care. Who do you think should pay for this care? The government or the family? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. So I've read it. I want to identify, what do I need to do? What do I need to do here? Here's my question. Who do you think? There's my answer. I need to give my opinion. Who do you think should pay for this care? That's my opinion. What am I going to do next? Brainstorm the ideas. After brainstorming, what am I going to do next? Probably identify the strongest points and which argument. Am I going to argue the government should pay or the family should pay? Maybe I choose government. Then I'm going to decide, I'm going to have a look at my counter argument, how I'll bring that in. Then I'll organise my paragraphs. Then, after about 10 minutes, I'm going to start writing. Okay, I hope this lesson has been really helpful for you all. I know I've enjoyed getting into more detail on how to write a fantastic essay. So today we've been looking at the task 2 on the general IELTS exam. Some things that you should not do and some things that you should do. We're already getting some people there saying the family should pay. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? So if you have a strong opinion, if you think the family should pay, then you should probably argue that point, but make sure you brainstorm your ideas so that you have examples to back that up. Okay, here we have, however is used to introduce a contrast. Azedine, you are correct. Exactly. Can you please explain firstly, secondly again? Firstly and secondly, shall we go back to the slide? Here, is for when I am listing different ideas. So the first idea, I can say firstly, family is the most important unit in society. Secondly, grandparents have looked after their children their whole life and the children should give back. I'm listing different ideas. Firstly and secondly, very useful to use. Very good. Should I write a thesis statement on main points? Just be aware, Walor, that thesis is spelled like this. Okay, this is one thesis, and then theses is plural. Okay, but very good question. Should I write a thesis statement on main points? Your thesis is your main argument in one sentence. It's basically a summary of your main argument. So you can have your thesis is kind of just another word for your introducing statement. So you can put a thesis, if you want to call it that, that's great. You can put that in the introduction, maybe in the conclusion as well. Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this lesson. I'm so glad you could join. Our next lesson will be on Monday, and we will be looking at the academic IELTS. Hope you all have a great weekend, and thanks for joining. Bye.